My old chief of staff said that I'm like a falcon. But I like go do and then go boop.
Yeah, I like that one. Yeah.
It's probably different all the time, right? Depends on what's working and what's not working. And I think if I'm paying attention, probably there's a problem. So I have a
Yeah.
great team, and most of the time, it's not that I need to go deep, but the things that I'm going deep on are changing all the time, depending on how the business is scaling.
CEOs spend their days building their businesses, and strategic questions often get pushed to the nights and weekends when they finally have time and space to think about the bigger picture. I call that CEO pajama time. I'm Sari Kaganoff, the CEO of AITSA, where I work alongside health tech leaders at exactly those moments. Come behind the scenes with me to learn from successful CEOs about the critical decisions and inflection points that shape their companies. Hey everyone, welcome to the CEO Pajama Time podcast. Today I'm excited to host Joanna Strober, the CEO and founder of Midi Health. Joanna, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to talk to you.
Awesome. So Joanna, can you start us off by just giving us a brief synopsis of what is Midi today?
Midi Health is a platform for women's healthcare. So we have 50 state coverage. We train providers to provide expert women's health, and we have all the care covered by insurance. So we're essentially a national healthcare provider.
And now take us in the way back machine. Like, what started this all? Why did you start this business?
It's very interesting. I personally had the experience of perimenopause, and what I happened is I, like many women, went to a primary care physician and told them I wasn't sleeping, I was having anxiety, I was having other symptoms, and I was sent to a therapist for my anxiety. I was also given an SSRI. I was told to go to a marriage therapist for other
Ouch.
issues. Yeah, I was told that I should go get a sleep study, maybe that I had a sleep issue that needed to be fixed. And so I went and got a lot of different services, and none of them seemed to be working very well. And what I learned is that the healthcare system is not set up to look at me as a woman first. Instead,
Mm-hmm.
we're like a collection of body parts. And so with each of these body parts, I was sent off to different doctors, but nothing was really getting better. Eventually, someone said to me, and this was now people laugh because perimenopause is like in the air. But when I was
Yeah.
going through this, perimenopause was not in the air. And I was eventually told there's a concierge doctor in San Francisco, and I could go up to her, and I met with her, and I started crying in her office. She's like, "Don't
Mm.
worry, we can fix this." And she gave me, the appropriate hormones and the appropriate blood tests, and my life got better very quickly. And what I realize is that we have a gap in medical care for women's specific care. And that's not what doctors are trained in other than OBGYNs. And OBGYNs are mostly
Mm-hmm.
trained in delivering babies.
Yeah.
So I realized there was this opportunity to basically create what I wanted to do actually, as I take a step back, is think of this woman that I went to who truly understood women's health. And I wanted to take her expertise, offer that virtually to everyone who wanted it.
Yeah.
She didn't have to meet with me in person. So I wanted to offer that virtually to everyone who wanted it. And I wanted it covered by insurance because it felt to me like this needed to be part of your everyday medical
Mm-hmm.
care, not something that was separate and outside of the regular medical care. So that was really what the thought process was.
Yeah. And Joanna, when you were in that office, was there like an aha moment where because you tried you listened to everybody else, you tried this, or you tried all those things. But when she said, "Oh, this is like perimenopause," did you just feel like, "Oh, I get it"? Like, was there a click that made this sort of shift in you, or how did that
Well,
experience happen?
I get it really happened when I had the right medications and I
Mm-hmm.
started sleeping through the night. And that was oh, wow. Like
Yeah.
I've been off kilter for a while. This is really fixing a lot of those things. And so that was honestly the moment. And there was another moment, which is that I broke my arm about a year later, and then I discovered that I had almost osteoporosis actually, and I hadn't been offered a DEXA scan before I had the broken arm. And
Mm-hmm.
that was also enlightening because if I had had the DEXA scan earlier, I would have had much stronger bones and I probably would not have broken my arm. So
Oh, wow.
it's all interrelated, right? Like we're
Yeah.
just not seen in the right way by the medical system, and that was really what I wanted to change.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a big gap though from being like, gosh, this should exist in the world to being like, I'm going to go build this thing. So what gave you the conviction and like the just energy to say, okay, this is the thing I'm going to go spending the next however long of your life solving?
Honestly, this is what I like to do is solve hard problems.
Mhm.
So there is just a part of me that is probably totally naive and just goes, "Oh, this is a big problem. I'm going to go solve it." But it was clear to me that there was a new opportunity, that COVID had changed the rules, right? So prior to
Mhm.
COVID, you might have started this company, you couldn't get insurance covered care for virtual care. So part of what my aha moment was is the understanding that for the first time you could have a national medical system instead of local. And
Mhm.
that was a big difference, right? Prior to COVID, even if I wanted to do this, it couldn't have happened because I would have had to there's no way to do it. There would be no way to take the expertise and make it global. But now you could do that. And so that was a lot of my big aha moment, that
Mhm.
the world was going to change because these laws had changed and that there was a new opportunity to do something different than had been done before.
Yeah. Okay, so then you get started. What did you do first?
We did a pilot. We did a pilot with 150 women, and we had 3 doctors, and they took care of the women for 3 months. And we did a lot of tests with them. For example, with our first screen that we did, we asked people, "Are you interested in hormones or are you interested in supplements?" And people got
Mhm.
really annoyed. They're like, "No, no, no, we want both.
Yeah.
Don't make me choose between supplements and hormones." So we're like, "Oh, that's good learning." So that was just one little example of all the learnings that we got. How often do you want to get texted? How often do you want to have visits?
Mhm.
Right? There were a whole lot of things that we were able to very quickly learn from this pilot. But the biggest learning from pilot was when we thought we were done. And we're like, "Okay, we're done after 3 months." And almost every woman came and said, "No, no, no, you can't go away. I don't have anywhere else to go to get this care." And that was our biggest aha. We're like, "Yes, we are not just a hormone company. We're not a supplement company. We are basically specialty primary care for women and
Mhm.
specialized primary care for women." And they weren't getting this care anyplace else. And so we had to, first of all, we kept going while we built it out. But the big learning was that the thing that we were offering was something they couldn't get elsewhere.
Yeah. And so you said in the beginning that you take insurance. Were you taking insurance from these women or the pilot was structured
The
differently?
pilot was free.
Okay. It was just kind of getting the experience down. And then tell me about the clinical side of this. So you had these three doctors. Were they pre-trained? Did you have to train them? Like how did that all work and how does that work today?
So, women's health is at the intersection of a lot of specialties. So, we had an OBGYN, we had a primary care doctor, and we had an endocrinologist. And essentially,
Mhm.
all three of them collaborated on the care. So, what we learned is that, each of them had specialized knowledge. And what we started to do is create care protocols, including all of their specialized knowledge for each patient.
Mhm.
So now at MIDI, we have a cardiologist, we have endocrinologist, we have primary care, we have OBGYNs, but we also have thyroid experts and migraine experts and cardiovascular health experts. So we have all of these experts who are writing the care protocols and then
Mhm.
also advising on special patients. So the way that we've constructed this is that nurse practitioners provide the care, and then there are specialists who are out there online at all times who are available to consult and give information and give help so that we're able to really give the appropriate guidance to every patient without
Mhm.
having to send them out to another specialist. What we have found is that when we send you out to another specialist, we often lost the women to medical care. You go to someone in
Mhm.
Arkansas and you say, "Oh, go to a neurologist for your headaches." They don't go to a neurologist for their headaches. They just are lost. So, yes, there
Yeah.
are certain reasons why I must send you to a specialist, but for many of the people, I could just have the specialist on my platform.
Yeah, so it sounds like what ended up happening is you really had to create it's not just for whom, it's also like a completely new medical care model that is much more holistic and with like a number of different stakeholders playing together, which is not what you normally get in any setting, really. So that's kind of fascinating. Okay, so then you do the pilot, it's all great, you have to scale. I've heard you talk about the fundraising journey, so maybe you can share with us a little bit. How did that go? It sounds like maybe not as smoothly as we would have all hoped. So tell me about that.
It's funny when you think about it. Why in the world would people think this is a good idea? There wasn't a model out there that showed that that there was this need out there, right? There wasn't a model. So we had to convince people that there was a need for this. So, we did it the way that is actually the system is designed. You raise a little bit of money, you prove a little bit more. You raise a little bit more money, you prove a little bit more. And then eventually it did get easier to it it did get easier when we were able to just prove that women were coming to this. We were able to get payment. We were able to show to the world that this is something that people want and that it was a model that worked. And then we were able to get more money.
I'd love to dig into some of the economics. Right? Some people imagine that this business has great economics. You're covered by insurance, 30,000 women a week. Tell me more about the underlying economics of this and how easy it is or hard it is and how that works.
Yeah. I mean, I think, look, we all know that primary care is undercompensated in this country, right? And so we are paid as a primary care provider. And the economics of that are challenging. We also went out and got in-network pricing, so we do have very low reimbursement rates. We are now doing a number of studies with Aetna and Blue Shield of California and other healthcare payers to prove to them that when people come to MIDI, we're actually able to save them a lot of money. Because getting back to what I was saying earlier, I didn't need that sleep test. I didn't need the therapy I was going to.
Yeah.
I was sent for a lot of unnecessary testing and procedures because I didn't have the right care. So we're actually demonstrating significant savings to the payer system. And it's my hope that we can build this into a sustainable economic engine by getting reasonable rates for the type of care that we're providing. But it is challenging to it is very challenging to build this into a sustainable model, which we are doing, but it's still fee for service. We're not yet in Medicare. We will be in Medicare in 2027. We're still a fee for service business, and it is a challenge to make the economics work. It's not a no-brainer to make the economics work. And then when we don't give, everyone really long visits, the women complain to us, "I want a longer visit." I'm like, "Well, what I'm most proud of in this company is that we are offering insurance covered care. I could do
Hmm.
a concierge company. I could do a fancy high-end longevity company and give you an hour per person, but that's not insurance covered care." And what
Yeah.
I want and what I'm most proud of is that, yes, we had a lot of the most powerful women in the country as our patients, but we have a lot of Amazon factory workers, a lot of factory workers. And I need to make sure those women receive great care. So we need a model that really works and is scalable. And that's a big challenge to build.
Yeah. And when you mentioned before you have neurologists, you have cardiologists, you have an endocrinologist, are you able to charge for the care
No,
that they're providing or it's
no,
just wow.
that's
Okay.
just part of our care. That's just built into the model. Because what we found is that, as I said to you, if we didn't offer some input on those things via our system, then women didn't they just couldn't get the right care. So now the cardiologist will weigh in and they'll say, you do need an in person visit, or this is the right care plan. So, but essentially, what we're doing is collapsing primary and specialized care. And that's one
Yeah.
of the things that AI is really enabling us to do. So, using AI and these experts, we're able to basically collapse the difference between primary care and specialized care by offering it all on one platform. And but that is a combination of humans and AI.
Is there a world where you're trying to push for like a blended rate with the
I think
insurance or
over
you
time, certainly that's what we are hoping to be able to do.
yeah.
Yes.
Because it sounds like you're definitely offering more than a primary care visit
Yeah.
but not getting paid for it. So,
Yes, we are. We're offering a lot more than a primary care visit and not getting paid for it. That is exactly right.
yeah. So then walk me through the journey. I mean, obviously you start with 150 women, you're at 30,000. Like, talk us through that journey and the evolution. And did the product change? What did you learn along the way? Did the business model change? What were the shifts that you had to navigate?
Yeah, what we really had to navigate was adding more care. As I mentioned, when we started, we really thought we were a hormone company, right? Like, that's why in the world we're seen as a perimenopause menopause company, right? But it turns out that perimenopause and menopause equals women's health. It's not a segment of women's health. Someone comes in, they have high cholesterol, they have anxiety, they have painful sex, they haven't slept in a really long time, and they have weight gain. That's a normal patient. So that normal patient has a lot of things going on. And what we found is that if you are selling a hormone, you're not solving these problems, right? This is not about selling a hormone. And we don't sell hormones anyhow, but that's not about selling a hormone. This is about solving a lot of healthcare problems. And what we also had insight because we're seeing women from all over the country is how underserved women are from primary care. So about 50% of the people who are coming to us are primary care patients. They don't have another primary care doctors. So we
Mhm.
end up having to take on a lot more care of the women than we were expecting.
Yeah. Okay. And so then adding all of these extra, you started with the three, the OBGYN, then
Yeah.
endocrinologist, and the primary care. Now you're saying, no, actually, we're learning from our patients that we need all of this other
Yeah,
care and just kind of
exactly.
adding that. And tell me about, like, as you're discovering that and you're talking to your investors and your board and saying, "Hey, we need to add these other things and they're going to cost more money and we're not going to get paid more for it." Like, how did that conversation go? Like, what gave you the conviction? Did you get any pushback on changing the care model?
I didn't really ask the board. I mean, this my job is to run the company economically, right? That's my job. And my job is to build the best care out there so that women want to come and get our care. So it wasn't a question, do I add these specialties? It was a requirement. It wasn't a board issue. My job is to build the best care model that is a scalable care model to provide expert care to the people who are coming to me. That's what I do. And so that's not a should I pay, that is my job. And that is what we're
Mhm.
building. And it is there is a very solid economic engine behind it. So we are able to scale this care in a way that works and that is a good economic model.
I'd love to hear more about your journey as a CEO. Like, one of the things I always admire about you is how open you are on LinkedIn, and I'm sure other platforms as well. I'm a big LinkedIn user. So I hear you sort of chronicling your story and your, various kind of personal things and work things. And I'm curious if that's something that you do on purpose. Is that something you had to grow into? Like, why do we sort of get to see that part of your journey?
You need to trust us at MIDI, right? Like, why are
Hmm.
you going to trust us? Why are you going to trust us with your most important thing, which is your health? And I have found that through being honest about our challenges online, through being transparent about how we're thinking about care, through being transparent that my sisters and my best friends and I get all of our care on MIDI and we have no VIPs. Like everyone gets the same care. I think that it's just a way of building trust with our community and as a community building thing. Um, there's some times when I've admitted on LinkedIn that we've made some big mistakes. I've learned that if I admit those mistakes, people have more grace and are more likely to trust us. And so I've just found that for me and for our company, my kind of being real is a superpower in terms of trust building with our population.
Yeah.
And at one point we were really behind in customer service. It was kind of embarrassing and I it was embarrassing because we were so behind, and I put out this thing, and I put out an email, frustrations@joinmidi.com, and I said, "Anyone, if you're frustrated because we haven't gotten back to you faster, email me, and I will get back to you that day." And I got a lot of emails, and I spent the next week doing nothing but following up on all these people and making sure we got back to them. But honestly, those people are still our patients. They trust us more. So
Hmm.
I take this very seriously. I really do. I take the job really seriously that we need to take great care of people. When we don't, I need to know about it so that I can fix it. And that's something else that I found is I will tell you because of the way I am on LinkedIn. I get feedback, negative feedback all the time in DMs. And I follow up on it.
Ouch.
Like, we're not going to be great all the time, but I can tell you that we're trying.
And the negative feedback that's like kind of customer service or kind of people's experience with MIDI that comes to you, is that
It is sometimes it's customer service. I have to tell you, a lot of times it's the insurance. They get really mad that insurance doesn't pay for as much as they think, or their deductible, or
yeah.
like people get very frustrated with that. They might get frustrated that we sent, I will tell you, this has happened to me personally. MIDI sends my prescription to Walgreens. I know they sent it. I can see it in the system. I arrive at Walgreens, they don't have it. That happens to me, and that's happened to my patients. It's
Yeah.
really frustrating. So then they call me, or excuse me, they DM me on LinkedIn and they say, "This is where is my prescription?" And we'll look and we'll see it's in the system, but the system's not registering it right. So it's good for me to know. So then we can put a phone number on the page and say, if you're at your pharmacy and
Yeah.
it's not there, call us and we'll follow up. But the pharmacy always says, "Oh, it's Midi's fault. They didn't send it." We did send it.
Mm,
It's just there's system problems in our healthcare system that are hard to
right.
solve.
So how do you balance? I mean, being a CEO, you have to raise money, you have to deal with the board and the investors, you have to run the company, and then you're also basically doing customer service at the same time. Like, how do you balance that? How do you sort of like walk me through in the day in the life of Joanna?
I don't sleep anymore.
Oh
Um,
no. Wait,
the
but you have care. Now you should be able to sleep.
No, I do actually. I get a lot of sleep. I do sleep. I mean, sorry. I will say one of my superpowers is honestly that my children have left the house, and so actually, I think starting a company as an older person is actually a real superpower because I have a lot of
Yeah.
time that I can dedicate to work, which is great. And I'm very lucky that I have a great relationship with my kids. My son, my youngest, the other day he was home from college, and he's like, "Mom, I feel like sometimes I'm talking to someone who has dementia." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, in the middle of a sentence from me, you sometimes forget what you're saying and you go back to thinking about work." Um, and I was like, "You know what? That's true, but you're okay." So, I say this jokingly. I mean, I love my job. Honestly, I love this job. I feel so privileged to get to do this. And I feel a huge obligation to our patients to make sure that we do a good job. So it is fundamental to what I do that I am answering these questions and I'm making sure that we're building scalable systems. We've hired great people to take care of these things. So getting back to the LinkedIn, it's not that I have to take care of them. It's just that people feel comfortable reaching out to me and then I
Yeah.
just send it to my great team who can manage them.
Are there parts of the business that you don't weigh in on as much? Like, are there parts where you feel like, okay, the team really has this and you don't get in the weeds? Like, I'm curious how you balance, sometimes I think of it as like a helicopter where you have to like go up and down. And so figuring out like what are the places where you really need to be involved. And it sounds like for you, voice of the customer really helps you stay in touch with like how are the services being delivered? Where are things stuck? Are there other parts of the business where you feel like you can be more hands off?
My old chief of staff said that I'm like a falcon, but I like go do 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 and then go boop.
Ah, yeah, I like that one. Yeah.
It's like, "Oh, okay," and then you go boop. So honestly, it's probably different all the time, right? Depends on what's working and what's not working. And I think if I'm paying attention, probably there's a problem. So I have a
Yeah.
great team, and most of the time, it's not that I need to go deep, but the things that I'm going deep on are changing all the time, depending on how the business is scaling.
Yeah, that makes sense. So speaking of that scale, I'd love to hear a bit about what is it like to run a company that I guess in the beginning was probably just a handful of folks and now is in the hundreds. Like how does your role change? How do you find yourself still fit for purpose at those different stages?
Yes, I mean, you're making it sound like there's like an answer, right? I think it's a
Mm,
lot of it. It's just learning. It's constant
yeah.
learning. It's constant iteration and learning. So there's no one answer. I think for me, it really is about talking to people who are doing different things well and learning from them and then bringing those things back into the company. I had an opportunity to talk to Scott Cook, who was the CEO of Intuit, and he talked about show and tell, but basically going to go learn from people who are doing things
Mm,
well, because that's the best way. People listening to them, and you know, I'll just use an example. Someone telling me how they're using AI in marketing, they can tell me all about agentic marketing and what they're doing with agents. That's great. Let's go look at your screen together. Can you give me
Yeah.
20 minutes to show me what you are actually doing? That is invaluable. And so,
Mhm.
particularly with AI right now, how we're learning how to use it in all the different parts of the organization, sitting down with people who are experts and learning from them what they're doing. And it's very short. You don't have to spend a lot of time with them, but just learning directly from people who are doing a good job at things and then bringing that back into the organization is very valuable.
Yeah. So who are some of those people that you've learned from that you've sort of sat over their shoulder, if you can
So
share?
many people, they're not CEOs. They're not famous. They're people who are doing a
Mhm.
good job at different companies and are willing to share their special sauce.
Yeah. That's nice. So, okay, so tell me, if I'm not mistaken, your husband works at Midi, is that correct, as
He
head of
does.
product?
Yes, he does.
Okay. So tell me, what is it firstly, how'd that happen? And then, like, what is it like to work with your husband in the business like that?
We had a different CTO and chief product person at the beginning. So the goal was not to work with my husband. At some point, it became clear that that team of people, the product person and the CTO we had, were not the right people and were not going to help
Mhm.
us to scale the business. And my husband and his partner, Jake, had been working actually in a bedroom in our house together on another project for a few years together. They were working at another company. And I basically said to the two of them, okay, you both need to quit and you need to come work with me because this is working and I need you. And so they thought they were going to be coming for like 3 months, 6 months, and they're still here a number of years later. It was not my plan that I was going to be working with my partner, but
Mhm.
honestly, I think about nothing else but work all the time. So it was probably very helpful to the two of us that we're doing this together. I guess it's like a fourth child. We did
Yeah.
raise 3 great kids together, and now we have a 4th, but we also it's actually very good. We don't work during the day, we're not collaborating very much. I mean, he's working on
Mhm.
very different things than I am, so that actually works, and, we're good partners, so we can be a good partner at work too.
Yeah, that's nice. Um, so let's talk about this a little bit. So you think about work all the time. You talk about work all the time. You bring your family members into work. But what are some of the other things that you make sure to make time for? Either in your day or in your week that are really important to you.
Well, I go on lots of walks. I walk a lot. And, I listen to a lot of podcasts and a lot of Audible books. So,
Hmm.
the things that I probably enjoy doing most are walking with friends, and then listening to Audible books and
Hmm.
podcasts, and that actually keeps me quite sane. I listen to a lot of, yeah, to podcasts that are not about AI and not about work, but about
Hmm.
politics or stories, just a lot of podcasts.
I guess what I'm curious to think about is like how do you stay up to speed on the industry if you prioritize that? So obviously there's podcasts about politics, but are there other sources of news or like Slack channels or people you make sure to talk to? Like how do you make sure you stay current? I know like we talked about the Falcon thing in the company, but then there's almost like a similar thing you have to do in the industry where you have to sort of run your business but keep an eye on the things that are happening around your business. So how do you balance that?
I spend a lot of time reading, honestly, reading is the
Mm-hmm.
best. So I just spend a lot of time reading about what's going on in the industry and what's going on in women's health and just making sure that I'm on top of things as much as possible. AI is great for that. So I have built myself an agent that sends me the most important articles every morning to make sure and then summarizes for them. So I've been creating my own agents that go out into the world and bring me all the most important thing and summarize them so that I make sure that there's nothing that I'm missing. I'm sure there
Mm-hmm.
are things that I'm
Which
missing,
is
but I'm,
right.
doing my best to stay on top of things.
Okay, so tell me about some myths that you think people tell CEOs over, that you've heard people either told you or have heard other people say, and you're like, that's so not true. Like, if you're a CEO listening to this podcast and someone tells you that, just like throw that in the trash. Like, what are some of those for you?
I think what I would say is you have to find your own superpower. Don't find someone else's
Hmm.
superpower.
Yeah.
So lots of CEOs are going to talk about what they did to make them great. And I think what's actually important is you figure out what can make you great. Because adopting other people's superpower is not going to work for you. So lean into what makes you a good CEO and what makes you the right person to lead your company. So for me, I'm not ever going to be Elon Musk, right? Like, or I'm not going to be a lot of these other people who are leading companies, and I'm not going to pretend to be. They're not my role model, and I'm not going to try to become one of the other people out there. Instead, I'm figuring out what makes me good at running this company and leaning really hard into those things and then hiring people who complement me really well. So I have things I'm not very good at, just making sure that I hire other people to do those things and hire really great people to do those things. And then if you don't have the right people, swapping them out quickly. I know that's
Hmm.
such a pat thing that people say, and I know it's pat and it's true. And I think it's for me and everyone, it's really hard to fire people. But don't think of it as firing. It's just changing them because you have to have the right people that fit your company, your culture, your time. Might be they'd be really great at another company, but they're not great at your company at this time. And you owe it to your company at this time to have the right people. So I
Yeah.
think a lot about that and having, you know, when you're an empathetic person, you don't want to make too many changes and you also feel badly but what really has to happen is you have to find the right people to complement you at this time and then make changes when they're not and you have to kind of be ruthless about that. And that is true for any CEO. And at the same time, you can do it in a way that's compassionate and works with your own value system. So that's something that I think a lot about.
Yeah. Are you willing to share what your superpowers are in building MIDI? Or what you think they are, at least?
Honestly, I care so deeply about fixing this problem.
Hmm.
And I am I'm old. I mean, I say that jokingly, but I'm not trying to do this for my career. I'm not trying to do it for to prove anything to anyone, and that is a superpower. I am
Yeah.
doing this because we have this really interesting problem to solve, and MIDI can solve a very big, important problem. So I'm very free from thinking about, oh, what am I going to do next? And I'm also free from the need to put my kids through college, right? Like I'm very free from a lot of things. So I'm able to really just care about this company and making it great. And I think that is actually very liberating. So that is probably my superpower. And then honestly, I think I do have a lot of empathy with our patient population, and that enables me
Hmm.
to be the right person at this time to be doing this because I am in our population, I am among our population. Like this company has true founder fit. And I think that
Yeah.
is a superpower.
Yeah, it's interesting because, when you said what you said before is it's not really about menopause or perimenopause, it's women's health. And so it's not like, oh, there's a 5-year span. I guess like originally when I would have thought of this, I would have thought, oh, there's like 5 years or maybe 10 when you're in this window. But actually, it's pretty much anytime after you're done with like the
The
OBGYN because
baby,
you're done giving birth, And even then, to be fair, I don't know that they really do primary care at the OBGYN. Exactly. And so it's sort of the rest of your life then
right?
is where this is like a fit. And so it's
People
kind of
come to
fascinating
us
to think
after
about.
having a baby, right? Because after 6 weeks, they don't have a lot of care and their hair is
Mhm.
falling out and they're not sleeping and they're feeling more anxious and don't want to have sex with their partner anymore. And those hormone issues are the same hormone issues that we're teaching to in perimenopause and menopause. So we have
Mhm.
a lot of women coming right after having children where they need extra help. And so and then honestly, we also have moms who are sending their daughters to us because those daughters are moving from city to city to city and they don't have an OBGYN. They're not yet having a baby, but maybe they're having a menstrual migraine or maybe they just want to
Mhm.
talk about the birth control pill that doesn't seem to be working for them. So, we have that population. And then we have 87-year-old women who come to us and are interested in vaginal estrogen because they're having a lot of UTIs. So
Yeah.
it's a huge spectrum of women that we are taking care of.
And is that what you were envisioning when you started,
Yeah.
or were you really thinking? Yeah. Do you ever kind of reflect on that and just think about the from and to, like where you started and where you're maybe not ending up, but where you are now?
I mean, essentially, we're following the women. That's really what I think of it as,
Hmm.
is we're just following the women and what they need. And
Yeah.
that has been a learning for me. Like, don't pre-assume anything. I I see the patients, I understand the patients, and then I can create care protocols and modules to make sure that we take great care of those patients.
Yeah. So you talked about before the kind of importance of letting people move on or moving them on if they're not a fit for your company. Are there any other components to sort of the culture building at MIDI that are really important to you or you think are important to focus on?
So I think that we're very lucky at MIDI because we have such a nice mission. It's very nice to have a mission of taking care of people like this that makes it much easier to run a company because we're all very mission aligned. So I'm very fortunate to have that. You also need to have a company that has both people who care about the mission and are mission focused and people who care about the complicated problems that you're trying to solve and
Mhm.
hiring those people. So you need to have both. You need to have people who are interested in solving this problem, and then you need to have interested people who are interested in solving complex problems. We have complex scheduling problems. We have all sorts of complex technology problems that are not directly related to women's health per se, but are very interesting intellectual problems to solve. And you need to have both those types of people in the company. And so
Mhm.
that is actually one of the things that I've learned is I don't need everyone to care about women's health. I need some people to be fascinated about how to use AI to solve scheduling issues when you have 50 states scheduling and you have to have people licensed and credentialed in a state with the right insurance companies at the right visit time and getting the right slots filled. Like, that is an interesting problem to solve. And so we have a lot of those problems and they're fun. They're actually interesting. And so we don't need only people who care about women's health. We need people who want to solve difficult, exciting, interesting problems.
We've talked about all these like strategic pivots almost like following the women. Let's call it that. Following the women, right? And you started with 150 and you had these three doctors and then you expanded and it was always the goal to have insurance, but now you're talking to the insurance providers about maybe not just a fee for service model or something, better. So how do you like synthesize that information that you're getting and then like decide on a direction? Like I'd love to hear if you could like walk me through that strategic process for yourself. Like is that something that happens on your walks as you're just thinking? Is that something you do in a meeting with your team? Like how do you take all that market input? People are DMing you like all this is happening. And then somehow that turns into, okay, now we're going to offer this. Now we're going to expand to that. Now we're going to try this other thing. What is that process for you?
We set up a new product introduction committee and it has
Mhm.
doctors and product people and marketing people. And then we assign people to write up new things that we want to consider. And then those things go to a new product NPI committee and that gets discussed and then we prioritize. And so I'm honestly the idea machine. I'm constantly coming up with new ideas. Bring this to the committee, bring this to the committee. And then someone will go do the work, figure out the market size, figure out the opportunity, and then prioritize it versus all the other things that we're interested in doing.
So your job is almost just to, I mean, you're just doing it naturally, but to sort of brain dump ideas for this committee, and other people are doing that too. And then they get through a more rigorous process. Do you ever find that you get like an idea becomes a baby and then the analysis says, no, it's a bad idea? Does that ever happen to you where
All
you're
the
like
time.
excited about something? Okay. So how do you handle that? Like, do you feel a like internal battle or it's just like, all right, the data says no? Like, how do you manage that?
Oh, goodness. That's really hard. It's interesting. I'm going to give you an example. This is a real time example. Peptides. Let's talk about
No.
peptides for a minute. The world online is telling us that peptides are the hottest thing and that all of our patients would like peptides. And our patients, many of them, are reading things from influencers and they're saying, our patients are reading things from influencers and coming to our visits and saying, we would like to try a peptide or what are peptides? Should I be using peptides? My doctors are looking at the data and saying, we don't have a lot of evidence on peptides. As a marketer, as someone building a business, I would say, well, we should give women what they want. We should offer these peptides because women are interested in them. And then have the other side, which is, well, no, I am a credible medical organization. The answer is no. And so we went and looked at the world and we looked at all the data and we said, for now, we're not going to do it. Yes, it's exciting from a market opportunity, but honestly, we don't have enough medical evidence to stand behind it. And so even if the world is going in that direction, we're not going to do that right now. So
Yeah.
a lot of it is you have to look at all these exciting things happening in the world and you have to decide which direction you're going to go. And we have values and we have really important values. And I think that's really what it comes down to. We need to provide women great medical care, the highest standard of medical care. And sometimes that's going to mean there's a market that we're not going to address. And other times
Hmm.
we will address it. But my job is to provide the highest standard of medical care. And so it's very helpful to have that as your guiding principle because then you can decide, does this fit
Yeah.
or does this not fit? And that is helpful. So yeah, so that is really how I think about it.
Yeah. I like that approach because you're sort of keeping yourself generative on the front end in a way, like hearing the market, but then putting in the rigor in place to then test those ideas and then say, okay, yes or no. And then in
Yeah.
the case of GLP-1s, it's a yes. In the case of peptides, for now, it's a no. Maybe further evidence comes out, you can reevaluate, etc. But yeah, that's great. So it sounds like building the new baby with your husband, you love it. You're even talking to your kids about it. Um, have there been any lows, like psychological moments where you're like, I just can't do this anymore, or it's just too hard? Like, tell me about if that does that ever happen to you? Has that happened over the course of the last 5 years or so?
Well, I've never gotten to a point where I can't do this anymore. that that I have not had that. I'm now in the public eye and I have
Hmm.
learned that that can be very hard. So, you think you're doing good things, but there are a lot of influencers online now who are criticizing MIDI for taking venture capital funding and accusing me personally of not providing good care anymore because we're venture capital backed. And so, therefore,
Oh wow.
my obligation is to money instead of obligation to women. And I have fought so hard to get this company funded to convince investors that this is a market. And, the best companies in our country were mostly funded by venture capital. I have to really get back to my values. I'm trying to scale care to lots of people. I don't want to be a concierge doctor. That other people can do that and they don't have to take venture capital funding and they can charge $1,000 a day a visit like I paid. And then honestly, like the people who work for me, sometimes we make decisions they don't like and I have to say, "Okay, you can leave." Like if you're
Yeah.
not comfortable with this type of care, you have to leave. Like I know my job is to build this into a profitable, sustainable company that is here in 30 years and taking care of
Yeah.
women. That's what I need to do. And so I need to really focus myself there and with the other stuff that comes in, kind of just put blinders on
Hmm.
and that
Yeah.
that is helpful to me when the criticisms come
Yeah.
in.
Well, it must be hard to balance because you're also getting DMs and taking like you're keeping yourself open to the world. Like you are saying people can
That's
talk to you, but then you have to deal with the stuff coming in. So it's like it's hard. You can't just cut everything off, or at least not the way
that's
you've
right.
managed
So
it.
that's
So
what's the challenge. That is a hard challenge.
besides for kind of keeping yourself steady on the values and trying not to read too much online trash, is there any other strategy you have to kind of manage that when those things become difficult?
Um, honestly, I think I don't have any secret strategies for you. I don't know anything secret.
Yeah.
I as I said, I love my family and I still talk to my children all the time and I go on walks and I have
Hmm.
family dinners with my parents still. I'm a very fortunate person. I really am.
Hmm.
I'm so fortunate. I have a healthy family. I have healthy children. I'm able to um I'm just a very lucky person and I'm very lucky to get to do this. And so gratitude is probably the biggest thing. I practice a lot of
Hmm.
gratitude. I'm incredibly grateful that I get to do something that I care so much about and I find that very helpful to think of it in that manner.
Yeah. And then just it sounds like there's almost like a rock solid like focus on the mission that helps you power through some of this other flack.
Yes, exactly.
All right. So anything else that you would love to leave us with? I'm curious if there's anything you can share on like what's ahead for MIDI. What are you excited about in 26 or 27? Like where are you looking toward as your next horizon?
really want Medicare. So,
Mm.
right now we don't have Medicare, but my goal in 2027 is to have Medicare. There's a lot of women 65 to 75. They don't need a
Yeah.
geriatrician yet. They just need someone who's an expert in women's health. And so I'm very optimistic that we'll be able to build a great solution for Medicare, and that's what we're going to do for 2027.
Awesome. Well, Joanna, thank you so much for joining and sharing your insights from this journey. And I'm excited to see where MIDI goes next over the next 30 plus years.